my first experience was as doing Z-Cars, which I filmed all around there. We pretended it was some kind of northern town, but it wasn't. It was all filmed around that part of the world, Hammersmith and Ravenscourt Park, and the studio work was done in Crisp Road, and therefore it was a fully functioning studio. Very good studio work, because there was no cafes or anything like that. It was just a pub that people used to go to, and I remember that vividly. And I remember recording there vividly. I remember that, you know, going out, managing to get out the back and watch the river at the back. And it was, and little did I know that within 2 or 3 years I'd actually be working there. The whole kind of Riverside movement, Riverside studio movement was Peter Gill, who was astonishing. Peter started these series of workshops, which was, by then, the Riverside Studios was abandoned, you know, and it was this sort of ghost town. And we went along and we started these workshops, and we started up in what was the dubbing theatre, which was above, you know, there was this beautiful, beautiful state-of-the-art dubbing theatre that they used to do all the post-syncing for their show. There was quite an extraordinary bunch of actors. There were people like Anthony Sher, people like Ian Charleston, Anna Massey, Penelope Wilton, Oliver Cotton, John Price, not Jonathan, the late John Price, he was a wonderful, wonderful actor. Jimmy Hazeldine, a actor called Paul Kemba. There was Sue Porritt, Paul Moriarty. There was a whole group of us who came together and expanded and subtracted. We were all working with Peter, and Peter did a lot of exercises, a lot of text exercises, a lot of just simple acting workshops, and a lot of talking. Peter's production of Cherry Orchard, his production of Julius Caesar, his production of, and of course, his famous production of The Changeling, which I was involved in. So all that kind of grew out of these workshops, and also he was staging things in a much more interesting way than had been staged, because we were using now the space, and it was quite an amazing space. I mean, people complain because we had to do a lot of running entrances, but the thing about running entrances, it created a tremendous dynamic, particularly in The Changeling. And it was really probably one of the most unusual spaces that was going in London. You know, there was no space like it. So, and Peter mastered that space incredibly well. We did the workshops constantly. We did them, you know, once or twice a week. Yeah, I was training. I mean, I suppose I was retraining. I mean, I'd already trained, but I was retraining. And Peter was a great stickler for language and was brilliant. And he really had this incredible ear. And he sort of taught us all how to listen and how to speak, and really about text. And that was his big bugbear. He was responsible for a lot of fine young actors really beginning to kind of understand their relationship to text in a way that hadn't been happening. I mean, it happened a bit at the court with Bill Gaskell and stuff like that. But the great thing about the Riverside, it was very neutral ground. It didn't belong to the English Stage Company. It wasn't part of the National Theatre. It wasn't part of the Royal Shakespeare. It was all these disparate elements that came there for that incredibly historic period of about six years, where it really blossomed. It was astonishing. It was the best atmosphere ever. It certainly had an amazing effect on me. That production, certainly The Changeling, which was a very young company, showed an incredible edge, because there was a sort of raw energy about the whole thing, you know, and I felt it was the first time I came into my own as an actor. That's when I learned at Peter's hand, really, you know, and I was I'll always be eternally grateful to Peter for that. Well, you see, we had this astonishing thing. We didn't have a huge staff there, and we did this production, and in fact, there was another production at the same time. Terry Hands had done a production of the Changeling, and we opened, and it just went stellar. I mean, it just went off the charts. and but there was nobody to get the people in the seats. So John and I said, we'll do it. So we went into the box office, and we were in the box office. I think we were there for about a week while the reviews were coming in. You know, better and better reviews were coming in. It was kind of quite a sexy production. It kind of really took off in a big way. And it was just John and I, who knew nothing about how to work a box office. You know, I was on the phone and I would say, "What do we do about this? They want 4, 6, 4." And he said, "Okay, just with all these charts." And it was nuts. Yeah, people went, "Why?" Yeah, well, actually, yeah, I remember some actor came in because also we would do the nighttime shift before we went and got changed. I remember some actor saying, "What are you doing here? Aren't you supposed to be getting ready?" I said, "No, well, I've got to get this, then I'll go and get ready." But it was great. We created the studio upstairs, the cinema, which is now the cinema. We never touched the dubbing theatre, which was fine, but we knocked down, we cleared that whole top floor. And we literally had skips down below. We had stuff. We were all covered in masks. We were putting that stuff down, and we did, yeah, we literally did the building of it. You know, well, certainly the knocking down. The building was done by people, but certainly if there was a wall, we would remove it. Yeah, and of course we didn't think about it. You know, I mean, I look at that picture you showed me of everybody. We didn't think about it at the time. We just did it, you know. And it was also lucky for me because I happened to live locally. So it was, in a way, it was my local, you know, I lived down Bishop's Park. So it was I used to run past, when I was a runner, I used to run past the Riverside Studios. No, I didn't, in a sense, because I actually did follow Peter to the National Theatre. I went to do Danton at the National Theatre, and that was a great production. You know, I did keep going back, and then in the mid-80s, I sort of I lost sort of touch with it in a way. I was back because of, what were they doing in '89? Oh, Titus Andronicus, yes, of course. Well, that was great. Somebody came up with the brilliant idea that we'd perform it, we would revive it and perform it at the Riverside. And of course, again, it looked like the perfect home for it because of the style of the production. And it just, everything came back, you know, and all the other actors who didn't know about the Riverside felt this kind of, you know, there are a lot of ghosts there, you know, a lot of sort of healthy ghosts in the place. And they felt it, you know, they were absolutely over the moon about it, you know, about playing. And of course, suddenly the scale of the production just raised. I felt that it would be, no, I just felt that it was a much better venue for what we did. And certainly it kind of, we got back to the running entrances and exits again because you had to do that. The great thing about the Riverside was the audience. It was a truly different audience from the audience that you got, the tired old audiences you get in the sort of mainstream theatre. There was a vibrancy. People went there with a sort of sense of expectation, which was, I don't remember that feeling in other places. As a kid, he used to come to the Riverside all the time. It's the history, it's the historical, you know, the Arrow, you know, and there he was working away and, you know, and having a great time, you know, doing Howard Barker, which is, again, a neglected playwright, but being done in these circumstances, which are what the Riverside really is conducive to, you know, of rediscovering things and giving life to stuff that have been perhaps not had the life that they've deserved. And Alan it was great. It was great to see him do it. You know. Innovation, cutting edge, you know, thrusting theatre, unexpected, great deal of fun. You know, what theatre should be. It was just astonishing. You know, there was nothing like it, and that atmosphere pervaded throughout. It's always been there, had that edge to it, and I hope the new building can somehow, you get somebody to do a spiritual thing on it and awaken all those ghosts. I'm excited. I mean, I haven't seen what it's going to look like, but I think it's on, you know, it's on the spot, which is what's great. Um, uh, yeah, man, I always felt with the building, there was always more potential to the building than we could ever afford. That was the problem, you know, we could never really open this, the site to the river, you know. That was always frustrating, you know. It was never quite right. I'm sure the new Riverside will do exactly the same, and it'll be the same kind of, it'll be a continuation of the remarkable work that was done there. It can't be anything but. I feel it in my bones.